It's week 15, which means the fantasy playoffs are upon us in most leagues, which, gives us a better focus here on talking about, is this a fantasy playoff starter or not? I'm Jeff Erickson here with Jim Coventry. Here are four players that we're looking at this week. Jim, jump right into it here. Tua Tagovailoa has had a good little streak of 3 straight 300-yard games. I'm playing the role of hater this week. I'm lower on all four players we're talking about than you are. Starting with Tua, who you have as a fantasy starter as your number 7 quarterback.
Yeah, Tua has at least 24 fantasy points in 4 straight games. He hadn't reached that total in any of his first 5 games. And here's the deal. They're finally figuring it out. What they should have figured out long ago. Get the ball out quickly like you did 2 years ago. And last week, they finally figured out, oh, that's right. We got Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle. Those guys need double-digit targets. They hadn't been doing that all year. They finally figured it out, and they're playing Houston. Now, Houston has a good pass rush, but with Tua getting out quickly, that mitigates it because that pass rush is not one that instantaneously wins, and the secondary players for the Texans, not much of a chance against Hill, Waddle, and then the ancillary players. Of course, you got your Jonnu Smith involved. Achad's going to have a little rough go. Running backs in the receiving game don't do well against Houston. But yeah, I just think they have to win. They have to win, and they have a defense that they can attack.
Yeah, I'm wondering what the bye week does for Houston because they've been off for a while now, both sides of the ball. And I'm kind of curious to see if they use that time to fix some things, maybe just rest and recuperate. And what that does in terms of like that maybe getting hands in the passing lane to prevent those quick throws. So we'll see what happens with that. But I see your case. I see the case for him. And all these players, I can pretty much see it there. There's only one that I might even quibble with at all, but we'll get to that. But yeah, I definitely can see it. Like I have them at 14, you have them at 7, but 7 through 14 are pretty tight. I do think that there's a pretty tight pack there. Let's talk running back. And we always have to give a little love to James Conner when I'm doing a Jim Coventry podcast. So here we go. James Conner had his best game in 3 weeks last week against the Seahawks, who had shut him down 2 weeks prior. This week, he gets New England. So pretty decent matchup. Give me more of the case for him.
I mean, 4 or 5 targets in 4 straight games, and he's a good receiver. He's always been underrated. And now here's the thing. They're playing the Patriots. And Christian Barmore's been back for a few weeks, and that helps. But this is a team, the Cardinals. They'll put that second tight end on the field if they know they can steamroll enough a defense. And Connor is going to bully this defense. They probably don't have many answers. Connor gets a number of explosive runs as well. And if this is one of those games where Arizona actually has a lead, which I think they will, that makes Connor more dangerous because that's where we might see the 18 to 20 carries we've seen last week, but then we hadn't seen those prior from till week 7 to 9. So I think we get that version of Connor, and I think we see the red zone version. Connor could go off in this one. I think his minimum is 18 points, but I think we could see his best game of the year with maybe 25 to 30 fantasy points.
Your lips to God's ears here. Let's go. Let's bring that in there. If you're enjoying this video, please click that like button, hit the subscribe button so whenever any RotoWire video comes up on there here on YouTube or on any other platform. And guess what, folks? It's the playoff time, so we're cranking out all sorts of great content for you here. Let's talk wide receiver. And this might be the one where we might have genuine disagreement here. Drake London. You have him at 5. That's 5. Single digits. 5 this week. I've got him at 18. Make the case for me here.
Yeah, so Drake London in his last 4 games, targets 13, 7, 16, and 10. They're playing the Raiders. Yeah, they have Max Crosby. They get no other pass rush. So if Crosby doesn't have that game record game, and he doesn't have those much. He had one against Patrick Mahomes to a degree. You could tell he was passionate about the game. We haven't seen that version of most of the season. And we were not going to see it here. But here's the other thing. Jacorian Bennett, right cornerback, injured reserve. You're not going to see him. Nate Hobbs, the slot corner. He's been out a couple games. Even if he plays, probably not close to 100%. I don't think he plays. And Drake London, we have seen, it was 30% slot. When I'm watching these games, it looks like it's more like 40, 45% in the slot. And here's the thing. Kirk Cousins is not going to have Minnesota of last week, the Chargers, and Denver of the 3 prior weeks. We're going to see that Drake London where he is able to get the ball in the middle of the field. And this is a defense that will really have no answers for him.
So, all that's great. And I agree. I think it should work out that way. I just don't trust Kirk Cousins right now.
Yeah.
He's, I think we don't have to belabor the point too much, but 0 touchdowns, 8 interceptions in the last 4 games, his 4-game losing streak. games including New Orleans, and Charger secondary that's kind of exploitable. He especially looked poor against, and then the Vikings last week too, where Cousins got the yardage, but didn't throw a touchdown, had a couple of interceptions, could have had a couple more. I have trust issues right now. I don't doubt London's skills. I don't doubt that the matchup is good. I just doubt that they take advantage of it there. I've got him at 18. I could be persuaded that I'm too low, that there might be a decent floor, but London hasn't achieved that ceiling in a while. Cousins hasn't achieved that ceiling in a while. That's the thing that maybe I've got some recency bias baked into this here. So, and that is not your friend, by the way. Recency bias is something that can drag people down a lot. I've noticed that in spread picks as well as fantasy.
Yeah, because he had 7 touchdowns in his first 10 games. So he was rolling. He hasn't found the end zone in 4 weeks. So the recency is, because otherwise PPR 17, 17, 12, the 9 was bad against Denver. But so the baseline's been there. He just needs to find the end zone. And yeah, they got to find the end zone in this one. Anyway, it's a good argument.
Amari Cooper finally had a good game last week, 15.5 fantasy points in PPR leagues, 6 for 95, didn't get in the end zone. He's definitely not the number one guy, though. Khalil Shakir is the number one guy. That said, I'm probably too low on Cooper, probably a legacy ranking from the previous weeks before where he was coming back from an injury, fully healthy now. Matchup against Detroit. Detroit's going to score plenty of points. I kind of think that they'll try to run the ball a bunch and limit the number of possessions in this game, which might be the one thing that limits the Buffalo passing game. But Detroit's got like 17,000 defensive injuries too.
And the thing is, they play man. They play heavy rate of man, and they try to blitz. And that pressure is probably not, with second-rate rushers, it's probably not getting through the Bills' offensive line. Cooper, in your mind, may be the number 2. He's not. His wrist was probably broken. He had a cast on it before. He's been back. He had 14 targets on 29 snaps. Still not playing enough snaps. That'll get ramped up. But almost half of the snaps, he was targeted. And with the advantage he has on those Lions corners, that is going to be a fantastic opportunity for him. But they have to have him be their alpha when they get to the playoffs, because they are going to need him. He is going to be somebody that's going to move the needle against all the heavy zone. They say he has to be winning on the outside. They want him to be that guy. And even in his first game when he went over there in week 7, when he was healthy, he only played 18 snaps, but he had 5 targets. So they want him to be a thing. And now that the wrist is good, I really think that happens in a real big shootout game.
My number 1 versus number 2 is not a denigration of Cooper. It's an appreciation of Khalil Shakir. I just think he's so good.
He's a fun player.
Fun player. Yak is all through the roof. The hands are great. I know he had 1 drop against the Rams last week, but still such great hands. Such a good player. It's
Love
more
him.
my reflection of that. The only part of the Lions defense that's not completely banged up is their secondary. That is the one thing that is healthy-ish right now, though we got to watch to see what happens with Brian Branch. But, Davis, Joseph, Arnold, they're all healthy at least. Compare that versus the defensive line, the linebacking core, where it's just a wasteland right now.
Everybody.
The practice squad players and off the street guys are starting for the Lions right now. It is that grim. Now maybe they get healthy by the end of the regular season, but man, I'll tell you, it was tough. Seeing it against the Packers, you could see it in question there. Zadarius Smith made an impact at least, but wow, they are hurting defensively right now.
Yeah, 100%. And like I said with the corners, they're healthy, but they're not good. And if that rush early in the season was getting home, you look better when you only have to cover for 2 seconds. If you got to cover for 3.5 seconds, you're exposed.
Indeed. If you want more insights from the great Jim Coventry, follow him on Twitter at Jim Coventry NFL, and also read him on RotoWire, where you can go and get that free trial. RotoWire.com/try. Right down here. You can see it. RotoWire.com/try. No credit card required. You get 2 free days behind the paywall. Check out all of Jim's great content, My Value Meter, all sorts of other good stuff there to help you win your league as you go into the playoffs this week. Good luck. Thanks for tuning in.